Hey guys, Jonathan Kim here, and I've got a great Rethink interview for a really important movie. Last February, I talked to Lee Hirsch, director of the documentary Bully, which takes a shocking, often heartbreaking, but ultimately hopeful look at what it means to be an American kid who's the victim of bullying. The film follows three kids: Alex, who's bullied for his looks and social awkwardness, a girl named Kelby, who's tormented for being gay, and Jemiah, who's in a juvenile detention center after bringing a gun to school to confront the kids bullying her. The movie also spends time with two sets of parents who started anti-bullying campaigns after their children committed suicide as a result of daily bullying. Naturally, this is a movie all kids and parents need to see, whether they're one of the over 13 million kids in America being bullied, kids who witness bullying but don't want to get involved, bullies who need to see the consequences their actions can cause, parents who should be looking for warning signs, or school administrators who need to find ways to change the culture of their schools to discourage bullying. However, the Motion Picture Association of America, in one of their annual acts of hypocritical idiocy, has decided that kids shouldn't be allowed to see Bully and have given the film an R rating due to the film's most powerful and revealing footage that captures bullying as it happens, as Alex is taunted, threatened, and assaulted on the school bus as well as at school. The makers of Bully appealed the rating, but the MPAA rejected it, maintaining that the actual daily life of a junior high school student was inappropriate for junior high and high school kids to see without an adult, leading the Weinstein Company to distribute Bully without a rating. I talked with Hirsch about the MPAA ruling, how he defines bullying, what people can do to stop it, and a lot more. So check out my Rethink interview with the director of Bully, Lee Hirsch. So let's see, I guess to start out, I was wondering, how do you define bullying?
So I'm not an expert, I'm a filmmaker, so I try not to make definitions. To me, bullying is when it's something, it's sort of, the kind of abuse, the picking on, all the different things that can kind of come with it are repeated, that it happens more than once, that there's a sort of imbalance of power, and that the person that's the victim can't make it stop. I think those are really important distinctions.
I mean, you see a little bit of it in the movie, but what are ways that some people think that they're helping kids being bullied that aren't helpful?
Huh. Like some people, as in who?
As in, parents or adults or people who are kind of like, well, just leave, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. But it doesn't really work
I
that
think
way.
if you minimize it, like if you're sort of tact, just be like, oh, this is just a rite of passage, it'll be okay, everybody goes through that. I think that can be unhelpful. I think because what it does is it denies the potential experience that individual's having, which could be really torturous. Bullying's like torture. It can be so intense. If kids are talking to you about bullying, imagine that what they're experiencing is worse than what they're actually saying. So I think when we minimize it, we do damage. I think that we have to sort of engage for the long haul and be there and so I think also school administrators can make that mistake often of a common thing is to mistake bullying for just straight up conflict. Like, oh, they're fighting, you're suspended. And not really understand that actually maybe that was that moment where that one kid just threw back after having been bullied for 5 years. So I think sort of having the sensitivity and the extra sort of care to reach in and sort of dig deeper, I think really matters.
Mm-hmm. And are there any countries or states that you feel are doing a particularly good job of combating bullying?
I don't want to speculate. I think it's building by building. I think there are building schools that do great jobs. I think that you can transform the culture of your school and the good leadership, a caring administration that understands this issue, that takes it seriously, kids that are sort of raised in that culture, strong mentoring programs that value social and emotional learning and sort of build empathy and that kind of emotional curriculum, that ability to connect, that really matters. Mm-hmm. And that makes a difference. So you can have a state that seems like they're doing well, and you can have a whole school district that's doing horribly, or a building where it's just bullying is just out of control. There's a school district in Minnesota that's had more than 6 suicides in a 2-year span. What's going on there? And many of them are linked to bullying. So then you have to ask, what's the climate, what's the culture, and who's responsible for that?
And speaking about culture, I mean, I talked with Kevin Solling, who directed a documentary called The War on Kids, which was sort of about how like schools are more resembling prisons and over medication and then also kind of zero tolerance policies. And then, you know, it seems like one of the best ways to combat bullying is to change the climate of the schools, but it seems that the climate of the schools has gotten kind of harsher and more punishing and very much just about a discipline, but not in a caring way. I mean, our schools, especially getting their budgets cut, are they capable of creating this sort of cultural change?
I don't know that it's a money thing. I think it's a leadership question. What is the sort of code of this building? What is acceptable and what's not? You know, I really don't believe it's a money issue. I think it's a hearts and minds issue. And if we can make the excuses that it's a money issue, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't require building a new gym. It doesn't require a lot to care. It's not a financial burden. It's a human burden.
I mean, I feel like I remember a lot when I was a kid, and like there was a 1 year in junior high when I got bullied pretty bad by this one kid. But I also feel like kids like in junior high, early high school, it's so much about kind of like creating identity, which a lot of times is kind of asserting dominance or putting others down or staying under the radar, or maybe when you get the chance, you bullying the kids younger than you. Like if there's something that's kind of like biological in the way that humans are I mean, the way that kids are trying to create their identities lends itself to this. And does that mean that can we actually stop that?
Look, I mean, these are really good questions for like a PhD. I just think that we can stop it, and I think that we can minimize it greatly. I've seen schools where it's just not cool. So yeah, is there going to be social laddering? Is there going to be dominant stuff? Is there like kids finding their way? Sure. But it can also be like what's sort of cool and acceptable is actually to be like out for the underdog, to be kind, to be like, we're not about that here. Like we're about like actually like being nice. Like, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's like if you start them with social and emotional learning, you start that early, you build that up, you create that leadership, you have mentoring, you have those kinds of things. It's really possible. It's just a big goal. But we don't mess with little ideas, right? We take on big ideas.
Right. And I was wondering whether there's anything, I mean, especially like, you know, with the Republican debates going on, what role sort of politicians kind of have in this, because I feel like you see like with the Republicans, it's like, oh well, Muslims are all terrorists, gay people are subhuman, that they're trying to destroy the country. I mean, doesn't that basically just give kids basically, you know, permission
Absolutely.
to bully?
I mean, yeah, I watched some of that debate last night, and you know, when they raised certain topics, and the whole audience was just screaming and booing, and like, you can just imagine them like gathering around somebody and doing that. You know, it's not, to me, it's not like left or right. It's about like politicians come out and feed off of those kinds of dynamics on some level. It's like a real kill or be killed world, right? It's not up to them. That's the real deal, right? Like, change isn't up to them. Change is up to us. Change is up to like 15-year-olds in America today. It's up to 12, 14, 15, 16, 17. These are the people that are going to lead us. They're going to lead change. They're going to say, we're done with bullying. That sucks. Like, we don't want to be part of it. That's not my generation. That's where change comes from, and that's what I hope to kind of help fuel with this project.
And so are you cool to talk about the MPAA stuff?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, yeah. So I read that this morning that
We lost.
Right. And,
We're pissed.
What's I mean, I know it just happened, but are there kind of next steps planned? Is there going to be an edited school version?
I think we're looking at all those options. I think we're also considering how can we continue this fight. I mean, we want this film. We believe that it's just to put this film out as it is, that other films have been made PG-13 that have far more violence, have beheadings, have 56 fucks, are like, I mean, what you see, it's like Alex who's sitting over there, who's like, sat next to Harvey Weinstein and appealed to the MPAA board, was like, you're telling me I can't watch my own life? This is what we go through. This is what makes it real. And to sort of put that value judgment on it when other things just seem so hypocritical, and like of all things, like a movie like this needs to be seen, and so we're gonna fight it.
Well, I mean, you have.
I got a good man on my corner.
Yeah, no one gets attention to these kind of issues and everything better than he does.
Yeah, it's kind of a dream come true for a small independent film to get to that kind of opportunity.
I was wondering whether if you felt that recently that the term bullying is being used kind of very broadly.
I think
in ways that are often kind of not helpful or
yeah. I mean, in a way, bullying is like, it runs the risk of ultimately not being too soft almost in time. Like to me, I think it'd be much more interesting if people started having a dialogue about, are we looking at human rights violations? Are we looking at torture in America? I think we underplay it. Is it important to frame a movement around something that people can grab onto? Yeah, and that's where we are, and let's build it, and let's go with it. I don't know. I think we need to talk about what it means.
And I was wondering it seemed like, interviews I was reading, you said that it's obviously a problem that happens kind of throughout the country. But I think that one thing that's very kind of surprising in the movie is, as much as, you hear that, that younger people are more tolerant of homosexuality, that they're more on board with gay marriage, but that seems to be a large thrust of where the bullying comes from. Is it just a word?
I actually think it's not so much that as to say that, I think what's happened is the GLBT community has been really vocal about bullying, and they really understand the impact that it has. I think, in our film, two of the kids, one who's passed away, one who's suffering through bullying, are kids with special needs. They're kids with Asperger's. I think that there's, for me, the point is not to say it's just about gay kids, because I think that's actually an unfair portrayal and it denies the experience of so many other kids that get bullied because of their race, because of their looks, because they're smarter than other kids, because their parents are really old. It's so many different reasons. And so I think it's important to recognize that anyone that's different, that doesn't fit into that core key perfect group, can be a target of bullying, and to really be there for those kids too.
I mean, when you captured the bullying on camera and everything, was that something that you were hoping or setting out to do, or was it or was it something that kind of that you stumbled upon?
I suppose I was hoping that we would be able to capture it, and in the sort of relationships that we had with the kids. There's a lot of kids families that aren't in the film that we worked with. We talked about that, and they wanted people to see what they go through, and to make it land, and to make it have the power that the film has. I think it's so critical to see it, so that when people are done with the movie, they're not in that conversation like we had before. Is it bad? Is it is it kids will be kids? It's this is wrong. This is crazy. You feel it. You walk in those shoes, and by the end of that experience, you're all right. How do I do something? That's to me the value of being able to sort of ultimately show those moments of violence and intimidation, is that it really stops the sort of argument and makes it about where do we go, what do we do. So yeah, I felt I didn't know how, if we'd ever capture, if we'd have to use footage we got off of buses or other. I didn't know how we would deliver it, but I knew it had to be a part of the film.